Welcome to Aligned AF, real talk for evolving souls with Yahweh Kent. Join Yahweh for honest conversations on spiritual growth, the messiness of life, and how to move through it all at a higher frequency. So grab a cup of tea and let's sail in. This is Aligned AF, and here's Yahweh.
What if your personality wasn't the truth of who you are, but the pattern that's keeping you from it? In this soul-stirring episode, I sit down with the Reverend Nian Vuong, Unity minister, spiritual teacher, and author of The Enneagram of the Soul, to talk about the Enneagram like you've never heard it before. We explore how this ancient system can become a 40-day journey back to your essence, not by labeling you, but by lovingly dismantling what you've mistaken for your identity. Whether you've studied the types for years or are hearing the word Enneagram for the first time, this conversation invites you inward. So get ready to meet the you beneath the patterns. This episode is called You're Not Who You Think You Are, and that's a good thing. Welcome back, listeners. This is Yahweh, and you are once again joining Aligned AF, Real Talk for the Evolving Soul. I am very excited about today's episode, not only because the subject matter is truly fascinating to me, but I'm also sharing time with someone that I've known 10 years now. We've known each other for 10 years, and she's an amazing person in the community, amazing leader, and I was very excited when she agreed to do an episode with me. A former Stanford law attorney turned Unity minister, Reverend Nian Vuong, J.D., Master of Divinity, is a contemplative Enneagram thought leader, international speaker, retreat leader, and spiritual mentor to individuals of diverse faith backgrounds around the world. A certified somatic Enneagram facilitator, IEA accredited professional with distinction, one of only 25 in the world, I believe, and the founder of Evolving Enneagram. Nian is also the author of The Enneagram of the Soul, a 40-day spiritual companion for the 9 types. Nian is passionate about helping people to live more fully from their divine nature and fostering a more compassionate, unified, and awakened world. Reverend Nian, welcome to the show.
It's so great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, such a pleasure to have you. Oh, well, thank you for joining me today. I know that we're going to talk about the Enneagram. We're going to talk about your book. I also want to maybe spend a couple minutes letting the listeners get to know you on a personal level. Now, I know you were born in Vietnam and that your family moved here, I think in 1975 is what I found, and moved to Southern California. Can you kind of share with us a little bit about your upbringing and the transition to the United States and how your early life kind of began the molding of who Nian is?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I would love to share about it. Yeah, I was born in Saigon, Vietnam during the Vietnam War. So I was born into a war. So that's just an interesting life experience to have.
Wow.
And we fled here as political refugees in 75, and I was a toddler at the time. And so technically my native language is Vietnamese, but if I were to tell people what language I think in, it would probably be English, and from my parents' point of view, I'm overly Americanized, so that's, from their point of view. But that said, I grew up in a very unconventional way. When we arrived here, we had nothing. My dad had like $15 in his pocket and just started over. And looking back now, I mean, he seemed so adult at the time when you were a kid, right?
Sure.
But he was like 30 and starting over in another country and then being responsible for a family of 9 people. So we had a 3-bedroom house with 9 people living in it. I mean, I grew up in a bedroom where we had 4 twin beds just placed next to each other. And at some point I was like on the foot of, like, I slept, I mean, we were little, but like, so I shared a room with my grandmother, my sisters, my mom. And so I grew up in an intergenerational household. So because we all fled here together at the same time. I grew up in a multilingual household. We spoke, my grandparents, some of them didn't speak English at all. So there was a blending of a little bit of French that they knew, Vietnamese and English. So those were my early days. And yeah, and they definitely shaped me and definitely shaped like my, my desire to offer people a sense of wholeness and belonging, because I certainly didn't have either of those. I mean, it felt like we were shattered, broken, and definitely did not belong. As you might recall, the Vietnam War was not a popular war. And so anyone who reminded you of the Vietnam War was not popular at the time. And so that was like the fragmented way that I kind of entered the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. There was a lot less tolerance back then as well. So
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's quite an amazing transition that your family had to experience, and good on your mom and your dad for being able to guide all of you through that.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
truly
again,
incredible.
looking back and thinking, gosh, I didn't know anything at age 30, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
how did they do this? And
yeah, yeah. I can
it's
barely take care of myself.
it's quite incredible. And yeah, but that's not how I felt when I was younger. I definitely was the black sheep of the family, and I thought everything my parents did was wrong, like a classic child, but also that whole, like, them wanting us to be more Vietnamese and all of the kids wanting just to fit in, to be as a quote, whatever American look like, then I remember even I would get awards in English because I would enunciate better than my white friends. And it was really this like effort to prove how American I was. Like, that's the way I grew up. Yeah.
Now, were you one of the younger children in the family?
No, I'm second oldest,
Oh, wow.
actually. Yeah,
Wow.
so middle child, very, very
Okay.
classically. And if anyone is listening who knows a lot about Asian families, so my older sister became a doctor, so that's gold. I became a lawyer, that's like silver. So in our, Asian family, I was definitely like not the golden child that my older sister, responsible, became a doctor. I was like the weird kid who read poetry and philosophy, and then was like, oh, my mom's like, you like to argue, so you should be a lawyer, is basically how it went. So
Well, at least you made the podium, right?
it's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how does a young woman in the 70s grow up to attend Stanford Law and become a practicing lawyer?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I think so much of my life, I feel, is there's this balance of like, I mean, aptitude, but also not exactly luck, I'd say fortune. Like, I do believe in some degree of there's something that we are meant to be or do. And so I can just feel the ways, if I look back, the ways that life just kind of guided me there. I mean, it was like, honestly, it was I suck at science and math, so I guess I have to be a lawyer. And so I ended up at Stanford, And I've got to tell you, if you want to talk about the quirk of this, it so happened that I was at UC Irvine. And so UC Irvine was just like 30 minutes from my parents' house. It was a public university. And so my parents like could help me pay for schooling,
Yeah.
And they really worked hard to just pay for this public school. But I remember I met an attorney across the street from my school at a cafe. We sometimes talked. And I remember telling him, well, I'm a philosophy major, and my philosophy professor's like, gosh, Nia, and if you have a choice between being a philosophy professor and being a lawyer, you might want to choose being a lawyer. Like, even though you have the aptitude for philosophy, it's a hard life to be a professor.
Yeah.
And so I asked this attorney that I met, and I remember telling him my scores, and he's like, what? It's like they were high scores for applying for law school and high grades. And he's like, you should apply to Stanford Law School. Cause I was applying to these, middle tier schools. And here's what I said. Stanford has a law school. Like, that's how innocent.
Yeah.
That's how, when you don't grow up in the States and you don't grow up with a family that knows anything about this, I didn't even know Stanford had a law school. Like, that's how sort of innocent my background was. It was just like, I'm trying to make my way. And here was this gift given to me. I was like, okay, I'll apply. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how it happened. And so there was just some good fortune in how like life's path was like opened up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a story. And then somewhere along the way, you transitioned into becoming a minister.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that the exact opposite of a lawyer?
Oh, hey. I hope to give lawyers a better name here.
Yes. I had to
there's
sneak one of the lawyers.
yeah.
in there.
There's, of course, there is the cliche of lawyering and all that. There's some good ones out there.
Yes.
But I think that what's interesting is, I joke about moving from like man-made laws to spiritual law.
Yeah, I like that.
There's the parallel there for sure. And I think there's also a parallel around this idea of I've always been fascinated with a question about the art of living. And law is so much about, I think at its philosophical roots, how will we live together? And how much law is needed? Like, is there something innately good in us, or do we have to legislate us into goodness? Like there's something parallel around the topics of who we are and how we gather together in our humanity.
Yeah.
That are parallel questions, right? That are sort of answered in different ways in the two. But I think what happened for me is, frankly, even though as a kid, I was always into philosophy and was asking questions about the meaning of life, I thought I was being all rebellious and tough, but really I realized, I was still seeking my parents' approval. And so I had to pick something that was within the province. And if I couldn't be a doctor, lawyer was second best. It was that simple. If there's no way, no one in my family thought that we could really choose something beyond that. My parents never explicitly said, you must do this, but somehow, maybe through the lack of affirmation, we're all like striving for that approval.
Yeah.
And so I never believed, lawyering is for me. I just went on the path. And then I hit a bottom in my life and entered a 12-step program of recovery related to sex, relationships, codependency, all the things. Maybe multiple 12-step programs. That was, I can't even remember, 2004? Like, dates are all fuzzy back then.
Yeah. But
it was around that time. It was really this idea that, like, hey, I work hard and I think I'm reasonably smart. Why am I so miserable? Like I can't seem to figure out the art of living, how to be happy. Yeah. And I couldn't make my relationships work. And that was the point at which I surrendered to a power greater than myself. And that was the beginning of my journey. I believe we're always on a spiritual journey, but my conscious spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And then it went fast speed. From that point, it was like, an awakening happened inside of me, a direct relationship to the sense of wholeness and divinity that was within me. Within a year, I found A Course in Miracles, and then I found Unity Church in Marin.
Yeah.
And it was like, I showed up at this church and again, had no background. Like my family wasn't religious, but I showed up and I remember being in A Course in Miracles class and like my very first class. And I remember people were all confused about something. And I had this sense, I was like, yeah, you know the answer. Like, you know this, like I knew it deep in me. But I was so shy at the time. You wouldn't believe it now. Boy, can I talk.
I can't imagine.
I would be I was shaking, like physically shaking in a room of 10 people to like just raise my hand. And I was like shaking. It's just like, and I had to raise my hand because I was shaking so badly. I was almost like shivering. And then I raised my hand and I just like talked. I felt like I taught for an hour, but I think it was 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I paused. There was dead silence. And then everybody clapped. Like it was this, like, they were like, who are you? And it's like there was something that space gave me that told me like there is something that's been in me all this time, but there was no place for it, like
Yeah.
not in my family.
Yeah.
And so out it came. And that was just the beginning of like, there's something like I know that's something that's mine that A Course in Miracles and Unity gave space for me to begin to uncover and then voice. And that was the beginning of coming into my calling to ministry. Yeah.
Sounds like you had that little spark inside you and it finally got some oxygen.
Yeah.
And just
for
turned into a
sure.
flame.
'Cause,
Yeah.
it felt very stifled in my family. It was just weird in my family. Like it wasn't like anything celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's tough growing up in situations like that where you've got something inside you, even especially when you don't know what it is, but there's nothing immediately around you to help cultivate that.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, like you said, some days something happens and it just pours out.
Yes.
And now there's no stopping you.
So
You know,
so
there's, I mean,
apparently.
you were afraid to talk in front of 10 people and now you speak in front of hundreds regularly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Amazing. Now,
Yeah.
see, and then in 2019, you left the ministry, correct?
Yes. So that was another big leap of faith. So I guess to fast forward, so I got this call to ministry. But even in the beginning, when I got the call to ministry, I didn't hear in my head church minister. But somehow along the journey, I moved out here where I live now, Kansas City, Missouri, to go to seminary. And then from there, it was very clear that the next calling was to this church, Unity Temple on the Plaza.
Yeah.
But even then, it was like I never felt like I totally fit. Like the structure of church didn't fit for me. And I was teaching. I found myself trying to creatively figure out a way to fit into church, and that was by teaching the Enneagram. So I taught classes, and then I created an interspiritual evening service. I mean, me and 20, 25 people going, hey, let's do this different thing. And then I started doing Enneagram sermons. It reached a point where people were like, I think this is what you're meant to do. And I was so scared because I had never not worked for someone else before. Never.
Yeah,
and I was not
that's
taught in my family how to
huge
be an
step.
entrepreneur. It was so scary. Yeah. The idea of leaving church.
Wow.
But
That's a
2019.
big step.
It was huge.
It's a big step.
People see me now, they're like, oh, she just looks confident. You have no idea. I was like having dreams. I was having dreams where everyone got on a bus and left me.
Yeah.
Like I was like, just where I was like, oh, my family's going this way. I'm taking a different bus. I mean, I remember this dream, and people are like, I don't think we're leaving you. I think you're leaving. That's what people told me. I'm like, oh.
Okay, I don't want to go.
So it's like, I found myself on this different bus with strangers. It was really intense. Yeah.
Wow. You're the proverbial duck on a pond.
Yeah.
You're floating and you look beautiful and graceful, and underneath your feet are going like this.
So yeah.
And then, so now you do Enneagram work pretty much full time, right?
Oh, full time. That's
Full time.
I live and breathe. It's my inner work as well as my outer work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before you dig too far into that, can you share with the listeners what exactly the Enneagram is?
Okay.
Other than a really big word.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, speaking of the word itself, if you break it down, Ennea comes from the Greek that means 9. So, 9. And then Gram comes from gramos, which means essentially like drawn figure. So if you break it down, Enneagram is not that fancy. It's like a 9-pointed drawn figure is basically what the Enneagram is. And so if you think about it like this as symbol, the Enneagram has become popular in our modern day, as you alluded to, as a personality typing system. And it is highly effective at describing personality. But the way that I foundationally use it is to understand how personality, even the word personality comes from persona, which means mask, that personality is not the truth of being, right? But personality is, it's not bad. Like my whole philosophy is nothing gets demonized, everything gets included.
Okay.
So a persona, it's almost like the wave is on the surface of the ocean. That doesn't make the wave bad, but it's only the surface of the ocean, right? And so that understanding that persona is only the surface of being. It's like an outer layer. And in fact, in our modern day, especially, so there's this persona we adopt in order to function in the world. And then we forget that we're not just this personality or persona.
Yeah.
And so this idea is like, once this is the act of self-remembering, the process of self-remembering what already is true, not becoming someone else, but remembering we are the whole ocean, not just that wave, right? So we are this wholeness, not just a type or a construct. And so what happens is, so the Enneagram, well, let me go back to just answering that basic question. So what is the Enneagram? To me, the Enneagram is actually a map of consciousness, or a mandala of wholeness. And so when we gaze at it, instead of thinking, oh, here are 9 different types of people, beginning by going, oh, this is a symbol of my wholeness and your wholeness.
Okay.
You know, and it's a symbol of our unity and oneness as well. So I can get into that. It's multi-layered.
Yeah.
And this idea, if you believe in like sacred geometry, that there is actually something very special about this shape, that it can actually map like the universe. And we being integral and part of the universe, necessarily humans get mapped as part of that universal mapping.
Yeah.
And so for me, the Enneagram is a map of consciousness, a mandala of wholeness, and a map of our awakening. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you see the big picture in all this, because humans, well, especially in our society, I can't speak to other societies, but in our society today, here in the United States, the humans that live here love labels. And they love to say, that person is a type A, or that person is an alpha, or this person has this personality trait. And when they look at the Enneagram types, if you look at the 9 types, they'll say, oh, that person is this one, or I am this one. But when you see it as a whole, I took the Enneagram test before this. I had taken it several years ago when I was in therapy, and it helped a great deal to really help me see what I was projecting to the world, and to help me find what I really was as a whole person. So it was a huge help for me. And so I took the test again just to see what it was. And I came out as a strong 4, but I also have 1 and 8 tendencies. And so when I get into that, I look at it and I look at the descriptions and I dig a little deeper and I think, okay, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. Unfortunately, that makes sense. And I'm willing to accept my ups and downs. I'm okay with that. But when you see it as the whole and not just the one thing, there's so much more you can learn about yourself.
Yes, beautiful. And I didn't know that you already knew something about the Enneagram.
A little bit. I don't go into these things with no knowledge.
Yes. And I love that. I mean, I don't want to say it like, had I been able to guess, I might have guessed 4. No, knowing you 10 years, just
Yeah. I'm a pretty obvious 4, I think.
So yes, and yes, there are different ways we can talk about it or name it. Like sometimes people like to say, I lead with type 4.
Okay.
As
Yeah.
opposed to I am, right? Again, I sometimes just go straight to that just because it's shortcut, right? You
Yeah.
know, when I'm like, my core is 3, or, you know, like it just takes longer, you
Sure.
know? And
Sure.
but yes, exactly. The idea is that once we realize this is the core default for my functioning in the world, then I can recognize I am more than this.
Yeah.
Then I can also recognize that there is tremendous gravitational pull to our fixation and that is the same pull we have to being, I'm an ego, I'm me. I don't want to die to who I think I am, which is the spiritual path, so that I can awaken into my wholeness, because I'm the little acorn afraid to die, you know, like, so there's some piece about being aware that the default goes back there, but it's almost like, and part of what my book is about is it's offsetting the pattern or habit of type. There are the 40 practices you mentioned in your opening are designed to help offset it, because it's almost like we have this groove, like a record groove of like, we've been doing this for so long, it just feels like this is me.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm being authentic.
Yeah.
When it's actually a habitual robotic pattern when I'm not conscious. This is where my thinking goes and this is where my behavior goes.
Yeah.
And when we know that, we can actually offset that. And sometimes the choice is to do that thing, right? But you have choice. And that's what I want for people. It's like the freedom to choose because you're conscious rather than operating from this unconscious level. Gurdjieff, who's primarily responsible for bringing the Enneagram into the Western world, is basically like man's a machine, and we don't know we are, but we operate in these patterns when we're not living consciously, thinking I'm operating out of free will, but I'm not actually free. And so the Enneagram helps to name the prison that we already live in and don't know, because we think I'm just being authentically me, you know? Yeah.
Except that most of us are being authentically me differently with different people too. Like, I'm authentically me at work, and I'm authentically me differently at home, and I'm different when I'm hanging out with old friends from school. And I stop every once in a while and go, which of those is actually me? Well, actually, it's all of them. And how do I put that together? So the Enneagram could help me with that.
Yes. Well, in a way, how I would like to frame it is, you know, actually, so Michael Singer wrote a book, The Untethered Soul, a few years back. It's a great book. And I remember cracking up when he's like, you know, in our modern day, we're all talking about be authentic and, you know, like, choose what you want. And I look inside, I'm like, which me are you talking about? It's like, which me, you know? And he's like, none of these are me. I am the awareness that can witness these different senses of self, if you will.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm even back of that the truth of me is even back of these ideas of me, you know? So as soon as I'm aware of a pattern, I'm the awareness witnessing the pattern. I'm not the pattern itself. Yeah.
So with that, is it even possible to bring the true authentic self forward?
Well, I believe it is. But related to that, I don't think the authentic self is like a noun. You know, It's not like, here, I found it, and this is the thing I'm bringing forward. Because as soon as we decide that, it's a construct.
It becomes different.
We're like, oh, this is the real me, and I'm going to bring this forward. When we know it's like somewhat curated, right?
Yes, yeah. And
right?
then you find yourself observing yourself as that,
right?
What you thought was your authentic self, but you're still the observer.
Yes. So what?
Fascinating.
Yes. So the idea for me that I've been living into, and again, as a practice and a process, definitely imperfectly, as all humans are, but this sense of the more that I can be the witness to my own humanity, if you will, like there's something, then the locus, the center of what is I changes. Before it was centered in that concept. And then it kind of goes almost like behind it. And there's something that just holds it. But what happens then is then the construct for me, it starts to break open. And it's almost like that truth can shine, but that truth isn't a constant. It's an organic movement of each moment. It's not like I can pre-say, this is who I am. It's that who I am is emergent in that moment. That's what I experience of like that spontaneous beingness that is outside my idea of myself, right? That is just life living. Like that happens more and more. And that is so unself-conscious, right? That is so simply like the organic movement of life, just the ocean moves, right? The wave moves because the ocean moves. And it's almost like that. It's like yin moves because spirit moves, and so feeling that more and more in the sense of freedom in that, for me has been at least my personal way of understanding the infinite, like it's all concepts, even as I'm talking now, right? Like,
sure.
And there could be another metaphor I meet tomorrow that better describes what I'm trying to say, Yeah.
And it's going to continue that way because it's a constant evolution. You stop evolving, you're done.
Right.
You're done. That's the only way you could possibly stop, right?
Yeah.
So this is fascinating and incredibly deep conversation, and I love that. But for the layperson,
yes,
who says that's all well and good, but it sounds a little out there for me right now.
Right.
How does the Enneagram, and particularly, let's say your book, how does this 40-day program help me to understand why my life is so screwed up or why I feel lost all the time?
Yes. Well, so great question. So I do identify, and I almost feel embarrassed a little because our society is so like, oh, threes. I identify as a type 3, and threes are nothing if not practical. So let's talk about like practical pieces of like, to me, it's like, if you can't live this, what's the point of it? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So for me, my book is not an ideal book for figuring out your number.
Okay.
I feel like there's so many good books out there already. I didn't need to write another book. It was about like, once you know your number, yes, there were a few people who are like, oh, I discovered my number because of your book, and you had a better description than others around that. Yeah. But primarily, I want to appeal to the person who's like, okay, I figured out my number. Now, what do I do with it? Like, where do I go with this? And so the idea is, again, identifying your number. It is this trailhead into your soul. Because you can now begin to recognize, oh, shoot, as you said, like some of the things you're like, yes, I do that. Yay. Oh, I do that. No. Oh, shoot. And
do I do that?
It's like, oh God, how embarrassing. And, Father Richard Rohr said, if you, you landed on your correct type when it's a bit humiliating. So that's one thing to know. And that's true because the ego gets humiliated and that moves into a more authentic humility. So starting with your number, being aware of it, what the book does is it helps you to see, oh, what does it look like when I'm fixated in my number? When a 4 is fixated, I'll just use that as an example, a concrete example. When a 4 is fixated, it's a world of really feeling like the need to stand out through being specially tragic. Like meaning it's not I'm standing out because I'm outstanding, but it was sort of like there's a connection to suffering and an over connection with life suffering, right? And so 4s can also believe that what they feel is true and authentic, right? And so we know that we are our physical sensations, we are our thoughts, but 4s can over-identify with I am what I feel. And so if I'm feeling moody today, I'm not doing that because that wouldn't be authentic, right? Like it has that aspect to it. And so the good news is, again, the way I hold it is there's no shaming involved here. It's more of like, oh, with compassion, you can recognize, oh, I'm doing this pattern again. And this pattern is keeping me a loop and keeping me from living my full divine potential.
Yeah.
It says that, like, it compares to others. Like the 4 has this comparing, envious quality, right?
Yeah.
Or some fantasizing around like a dream life that is better than the mundane life. You know, these are some of the patterns. And so that can keep the four from actually showing up to fully live like the everyday in a way that is magnificent.
Yeah.
The
And
beauty.
I can attest to that. I've been
Yeah.
there. I've
Oh,
been there. I
amazing. Yeah.
totally get
So
it.
your ability to live the mundane and to see the exquisite beauty in what seems average and, you know, normal is part of the path. And so this book is designed to help people recognize that when this happens, that's magnificence, right? That's the glory of like the soul being able to bring forth. I mean, a four that is awakened brings an exquisite kind of beauty to the world. And when a four is not, it's very self-centered in its way. You know, again, everybody has a style,
Sure.
but everything's subjective, the experience of the world. I've noticed like fours that evolve create more objective art. It's like universal because there's an opening of the space of like I that is less about being outside of humanity and more being in the sphere of it, but still using the natural creativity and penchant for seeing depth. Fours have this capacity for depth and going into dark places that other people won't go into.
Yeah.
But you know, not staying in the dark, but drawing that gift out
Right.
into the world happens. So for every number in the book, in the Enneagram Primer part of the book, I talk about, give you a glimpse of what it can look like when you are awakened in your Enneagram point. Then I offer 9 principles. And again, this is partly to offset the popular notions of the Enneagram of like, you are your type. So the first principle is you are not your type.
Yeah.
And then the second is, well, if you're not your type, why bother, right? But the type is the trailhead into the wilderness of self. Another principle I offer is that type is based on motivation, not behavior. So we can mistype if two people are doing the same thing. Someone's just like yelling and angry. Everyone's like, you're an 8, you know, like, well, no, it's not that. It's like, why are you yelling? You know?
Right.
It's why. It's motivation. And then one key principle that I offer in the book that I feel like, you know, I know you and I have connected through being part of the unity movement is I feel like the unity movement can get overly like belly button gazing. Right? It's the self-absorption. And in this book, I talk about wholeness is not individual. When we come into wholeness is communal. And so like, it's not like just all about me and mine. Like if you're stuck there, you're probably not entering into your wholeness.
Right.
And so that's an offering I make in the book about like who we are in connection to the whole, right? That is less paradoxically self-absorbed. We go within to awaken to our oneness, right? Not to feel like we're separate entities over here. And so that's some of the principles. Then I offer 9 practices that are contemplative practices to support you in both self-observation and also that path we talked about earlier of dying to who you think you are. So, because for me, there's so many people who just like Enneagram information and don't move into the practices that actually create the transformation, right? That actually pave the way for something different to happen. So those practices, they are practices that I do. Someone told me once, it's not about practicing what you preach. It's about preaching what you practice. And so it's like I'm offering in the book what I actually practice in my being, right? And my community members as well. So it's like there's experiential life in this book. It's not just an idea. It's already been lived and being lived. So the practices, and then I offer 9 prayers in the book. And so some people have shared with me that they've already printed their type's prayer and they have it in the bathroom, and that's so sweet, you know, but just as the reminder that that particular type needs to remember. And I'll go back to the idea that for me, your Enneagram type, again, this is only one perspective, but from my perspective, it's based on having lost sight of one face of God or one facet of our unity, you know, and And the idea is that we look for that in the world. Like fours have lost sight of holy origin, the idea that you are one with your source, your origin. And fours are like, I'm separated. So it's funny that the word origin and original. So I better be original, like, so
Right.
I like create my originality. I'm like, you're already original, but it's like fours try to become original and special, right? But if you remember that you already are, then you live from that unaffected, authentic originality rather than the curated originality of, oh, what are they wearing? I'm going to be a little
Yeah.
different from that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So 9 prayers. And then the last thing I'll share is, as you mentioned, the 40 activations. And I know you're into probably numbers as well. So the idea of 40 is very spiritually symbolic, but basically these activations, I offer it for all the numbers. So all the types. And there are a lot of devotionals out there that are like, for type 1, if you're a type 1, pick this up. And I deliberately wanted everyone to see everybody's, again, that more holistic picture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those are the practices that are like, oh, offsetting what's my type's pattern, helping me to see the pattern and helping me to choose a different way to show up today.
Yeah.
And seeing, so.
And as you mentioned earlier, or we talked about together, people do have other types within their type. Do you call them wings or?
Oh, okay. We could talk about that. Yes.
I was
So
just before we continue on the wings. So what you were just referring to with having all of that there in the book gives a person the opportunity to say, well, I may be a type 4, but I have aspects of a 1 or aspects of an 8, and being able to see those practices as well would benefit me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, twofold. It would benefit you, and I would say it would benefit our world. So the way that I language it is that we're only one Enneagram type.
Okay.
Like the type is a personality construct. But if you look at the Enneagram as a map, it's like there are points along the map. And if you look at the Enneagram, maybe I should have started here. The way I opened the book in the Enneagram primer in the book is meditate on the circle first. This is you. This is your wholeness. That little dot where your point is not the whole of you. So instead of being like you're another type, it's more that all the points in our humanity are part of our potentiality.
Okay.
All the gifts of just being human are part of this wholeness. But your type will say, like, it's almost like if you are properly a 4, again, I haven't like worked with you one-on-one, but
Right.
But that's a guess, right? If you are, then you will struggle with joy. And joy will be part of your shadow. Like, it's not okay to be joyful. In fact, superficial people are joyful.
Yeah.
That's the default. And so when joy arises, the personality structure says no to it. But if it's part of the circle of our wholeness, your wholeness, part of like even your divine potential, your beingness, but the type structure says, nope, not good. Let's stay in our creative suffering. That's what makes us cool. Is that right?
Oh God. I'm now afraid of myself.
But hopefully we could also just laugh. That's why.
Yeah.
You reminded me. I told people I'd rather you not know the Enneagram than apply it without compassion.
Yeah.
Just right. Because it is painful and humiliating.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
there's some serious ego checks
Yes.
when you start digging into this.
Yes.
And you need to be okay with that. You don't have to love it. You don't have to embrace it day one, but you do have to be okay with taking a look.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like loving yourself enough to be willing to let the ego die. I mean,
Yeah.
like, really,
Yeah.
you know what and like go, oh, I don't have to preserve that.
Yeah.
Like even that positive idea I had about being that kind of person, it's like, I don't have to keep that.
Right.
There's something more. There's a hopefulness that wholeness is actually, well, just the truth for one.
Yeah.
And also just innately innately beautiful, innately divine, innately lovable, without the effort of trying to make itself something. I'll tell you that as a type 3, the 3's deepest core fear in the personality structure is failure. And it's not as simple as, oh, you failed. Like, people could I failed at something. 3s believe if you fail, you are a failure. That's the false core belief.
Yeah.
When I was writing this book, I was terrified. I mean, I didn't know why some days I just couldn't write. I was so scared to put something that felt like it could suck into the world.
Yeah.
And the only way I was able to finish the book was to be prepared to love myself if the book sucks. That's the only way I could give birth to this book. I had to go through this, letting it all go, letting it die, and saying, if you are called to offer this into the world, to be of service in this way, your ego cannot be in the way, right? And the ego being in the way was, oh, let's make sure everybody loves it. Yeah.
And that's a huge ask, because we're raised in this society to say you're going to succeed, because if you put all that work in, what a waste of time that was if it's no good.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just wasted a year or 2 years or 5 years that I put into this thing.
Right.
Now what?
Yes.
I suck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way
The
we're
ego
brought
is
up.
often not very nice.
No, it's not. It's not.
Right. We follow it so often. It's
I know.
It's a meanie. It's just,
It is.
it's clearly not the voice of love, right?
Right.
And so the paradox is, yet, if I was trying to earn love through my book, the book would suffer. The gift would suffer. And so the practice and the process of continually, and sometimes it is, it's how the idea of letting spirit drive, you might for a few seconds, and then you grab the steering wheel again.
Yeah,
It's sort of
yeah.
oh, I surrendered that yesterday and here it is again, Okay, I got to surrender it again. Okay, in order to really move forward and again, have the ego get out of the way of the soul expressing, Yeah, so my truest preparation wasn't the research for the book, right? It was the inner work of being willing to put something out there that I can't stand next to the person and go, oh, this is what I meant by this.
Right.
And, if you don't like it, well, let me explain.
Right.
They have to read it on their own and decide on their own and maybe never talk to me. That surrender of putting something in the world that then is out of my hands,
Yeah.
it was a huge part of my inner process to actually finish the book.
Yeah. Yeah. There are times where, and I have to, I openly admit this, there are times where my ego is so far forward that I don't think I could stand at the table with a pile of books like you do and watch somebody pick it up, go like this and throw it down and walk away without throwing it at the back of their head. How do you do that and not take the bruise?
We definitely would have a different response. I don't think I'd throw it at them. I'd more hide in a corner, I think. But
Yeah.
no, that's so interesting. Yeah. But I'm sure. I mean, you say there's a day where you would do that and a day when you would not, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I'm not that person.
Yeah.
But I know where my ego can get a little crazy.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You mentioned the activations that are in your book. Is there one activation that you return to over and over again in your own life?
Oh my goodness. Great question. To be honest, I use them all.
Okay.
But I think that the one at the very end, I actually happen to have the book here with me.
Oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah, but it is probably because it's related to rest and the notion of sufficiency. In fact, they all do. I'll say that the opening activation starts you to counter. So the day one activation attempts to counter the Western mindset of self-improvement, right? So it says, okay, you know, when you're starting on this journey, that even if I keep telling you that you're already whole, you're going to start going, let's fix something here,
Yeah.
right? Let's,
Yeah.
I'm going to better myself. And so the first one is, what is adorable about you? So I love that. And so it's just about naming and owning these aspects where certain types don't tend to know it as much.
Yeah.
But then at the very end, so that was one of my favorites. And in the very end, day 40, it's called At the End of the Day. And that's symbolic, not just at the end of this journey, but almost like at the end of each day, or really almost like ultimately. And that's where I could even say, like, I end with the quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is, breathing in, I calm body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment.
Mm.
And that's it. You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
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 There are people out there that may have an awareness of the Enneagram, may even know their types at this point, but maybe they're spiritually exhausted. Maybe they've gone through so many different programs and they've done, Tony Robbins, they've done Wayne Dyer, they've done all these different things. And what would you share with somebody who just feels like they've been up against all of it? And maybe your book or your program would help them.
Yeah. Well, even as I was reading that quote, I was reminded of A Course in Miracles sort of saying, which is that this spiritual journey is a journey without distance to a home you never left. And that salve, I hope, is something that permeates every line of my book. So that if we're not trying to get somewhere at the end, right, this destination, but rather, oh, well, if I'm not trying to get there now, and and I don't want you to feel like you need to get there, you can be here. And if you're here, you will feel your sufficiency. And hopefully my words are a way you remember that. One of the best compliments I got about the book is like, someone said you could hear the love infused in the choice of words. I'm like, you could feel that? I was like, I tried to do that. I was like, that was my hope, but you could feel that. And so if it's a salve that you need to the tyranny of the ego, then let the words of the book be that comfort, be that salve to support you in going, I am enough. It's okay to be right here. I don't need to fret or plan or ruminate about the past. And that the more I practice that enoughness, then it is embodied in me. And then as I journey even further in the book, The Paradox, right? A Journey Without Distance, as I journey further, that embodied sense of presence and sufficiency and wholeness just begin to permeate in a way that overflows unto the world.
Yeah, that description makes me feel like that the words and the process of the book actually cradles you, actually holds you in compassion each step of the way, which is exactly what someone would need if they're just spiritually exhausted. They need that kind of nurturing. And it sounds like that's what this book gives to you during the process.
That's my intention, at least.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Here's sort of a philosophical question for you. What do you think the world would look like if more people lived beyond their type?
Oh, I love this question. Amazing question. Because I have thought about it. Oh my goodness. Well, so this is sort of the root. You're getting at the very root of why I do this work, inner as well as outer, because I believe in, so here's my bias. I believe we are fundamentally whole. I believe we are fundamentally divine. And I don't believe it's just me and you, or people who think like us or act like us or believe what we believe. But everything and everyone. And what I found is our type structure, when we're locked in and fixated in our type, we declare there's an ideal way to be. This is our type structure. And the rest of it is shadow. The rest of it is what we reject, what we condemn, what we hate, what we have yet to love and embrace as a part of our wholeness. So imagine if I break out of the shell of my type. All I know is that in my personal journey, I've loved more. I like my parents they had no idea what I was doing with this weird stuff, kind of like Unity Ministry. All they know is I'm a more loving daughter now. Yeah. It's like the real effect of to love what we did not yet love, to embrace what we rejected. And that is hard in this day and age, because we all know that those who kind of fall on the left side are like anti. I'm not anti. And my aspiration is to find what I'm against and to open the boundaries that I have around that space, and to really recognize the belonging of that. And I do it, let's say throughout my life, I had an issue with people. Type 9s on the Enneagram often have issue with people who are angry and aggressive, right? A lot of times 8s, like 9s. Well, guess what? 9 shadow part inside is their own anger, right? And so they're like, oh, look at it in the world. You're mean, you're bad, you're a bully. And inside of them, there's this anger that they've repressed. But inside, 9s feel really calm and peaceful, maybe even sleepy. Why? Because there's a lot of energy to push down this anger inside of them. But what we found is that when they open and awaken, the anger becomes energy. The anger, so what we know about shadow work is when something is in the shadow, it leaks out in unskillful ways. But when it is brought to light, it then matures and is skillfully used. So at first 9s open to anger and they're like, wow, they're literally having tantrums and they're learning how to use their anger. But when they do, they harness it for the action that 9s tend to procrastinate on. So it's like this. And then they realize that, the reason I was so against having you in our little small group because you took up too much space wasn't because they take up too much space. It's because I didn't take up my rightful space. We come into our wholeness and a greater sense of our oneness without demonizing the other and recognizing there's a part of the other that lives in us. I'll give you a personal example. It used to be, I was like, what is my karma that I'm surrounded by incompetent people? I used to be so judgy around this. And I would be like, God, and then I have to do everything. This was my life story. The Enneagram helped me to understand that the 3 shadow is incompetence. We reject anything in us that isn't capable. And we only allow, I'm only allowed to have this. I can't rest. I have to achieve. I have to perform. When I started to let myself rest, when I started to let myself, love myself when I made mistakes, all these things, go figure, I stopped attracting incompetent people.
Amazing.
It stopped being in the world. I was like, the lesson is learned. And I believe this is true in our collective humanity. It's the people who are so, it's like people who are closed-minded to closed-minded people. We see that, right? Yeah. So it's it's you're doing the same thing, just a liberal version of the same thing. You're saying no to them because they're not like us.
Right.
And so that's where I believe that when we break out of the not me, not us shell, we come into our unity as a world. And that is actually my large hope. For this book and for the world, if this book could play even a small part in that is my deepest wish and dream.
So growing up and being taught by family, friends, society to avoid the negatives, stay away. You don't want that person in your life, stay away from them. You don't like that action, don't do it, or don't be a part of that group or whatever it might be. But you're saying, no, embrace those things and find out what it is that is your connection to that, and do it with compassion and without judgment. And all of a sudden, things become easier. Well, not all of a sudden because it takes work, but
Yes,
you
it is.
find that if you actually face the stuff that you really don't want to,
Yes.
you, what am I trying to say? Finish it for me.
Yes. Oh, well, we integrate. We
Okay,
integrate
there you go. That's what
aspects
I'm
of our
looking for.
oneness. First,
Yeah,
our wholeness and our oneness. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the two are intimately intertwined. You know, yeah, and I want to make it clear for anyone listening because people can sometimes go, when people say, "Oh, love everyone," and then they go to that abuser. I
yeah,
want to say there's a big difference, right, in the world. If someone is abusing you, go away.
yes,
like,
yes, yes.
like but also look at the part of yourself that is activated by it and what is happening within you, because chances are there might be something that you have like within yourself that you've repressed. Maybe it's your power, right? For someone who has like power over you, maybe
Yeah,
it's your inner power, and if you claim that, then there's something, but maybe you didn't claim your power. Like here's another example. I'm picking on nines today, I guess, but nines have a line to 3. This is part of the map of the Enneagram that's so amazing once you get to know it. What does that mean? A lot of nines have issues with 3ness because 3s can be shiny, and and nines are like, just blend in. Oh, we don't want to stand out too much. There's a lot of judgment around that. Well, nine's issue in life is they need to stand out. They need to integrate that. So instead of standing on the sidelines, oh, look at those 3s and being all judgy, right?
yeah,
They're not claiming their power, right? They're not claiming their limelight. They're afraid of stepping out into the world, maybe for the same reasons I am, right? It's very fragile to be out there invisible, right? It's very vulnerable. But like instead, I can just say, oh, that's a bad thing to do. Oh, stop bragging about, like when they undersell themselves,
right.
and then the world doesn't get their gifts and they are doing a disservice to the world by not bringing them forth, right? So what people tell me about other people tells me everything about them.
About them. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I wanna, before we close up here, something you just mentioned about the getting out of the abusive situation, but taking a look. So many times I've heard people in the spiritual community say things like, it's almost like blaming the victim sometimes. It's almost like, what did you do to attract that? Or what in you is reflective on that person? And it's not a blame game at all. What it is, yes, get that abuser out of your life and look at what it is that was connected to you in some way so that you can not attract it again in the future, right?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. As if, and again, this is a metaphysical thing. Not everyone has to believe it, but
Sure.
I do believe it's like lessons learned, right? It's sort of like once it's integrated, it doesn't get projected as something outside of us.
Right.
I mean, arguably, even I know you share it in this that we don't hold to this traditional notion of like a devil, right?
Right.
But I
Right.
believe that that's similar where in fundamental Christianity, there's this notion of like, not me, and it gets projected onto another form. It's like, you're the devil, you're the, like, and I was like, oh, well, there might be some greed or anger or stuff inside of us that we haven't really integrated yet. And we are afraid of that part. And I believe that if we do actually believe that we are born in original blessing and not in original sin,
Yeah.
born whole, born divine, then what if you looked at that anger and trusted it? Maybe it transforms when you gaze at it, right?
Yeah.
When you bring it close, right? Those scary demons under the bed, it's sort of like they say in dreams. Oh, I had one dream. I'll just share really quickly. I had one dream where I was driving up a mountain, and then there was a scary wolf on the side of the road, and it looked into my like window and peered in, and I got super scared at first, and then I was about to push it away and drive up the mountain, and then I had a realization. I was like, I brought the wolf into my car. Something changed and it transformed. It was as if the thing that I feared I brought in, and then I drove up the mountain. It's like a little like figurative mountain top. It was really kind of
Yeah.
fascinating.
Need some
But
dream. You don't need a lot of dream analysis on that one. That was,
yeah.
oh,
Um,
fantastic. Nian, this has been so much fun, and I get the feeling that we could do 9 or 10 more episodes on each type. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just fascinating, fascinating stuff. Um, could you take a few minutes and let us know how people can contact you, where they can get their book? By the way, I need an autographed copy sometime very soon
yeah.
because now you've got me wanting to go through the steps. Um, and anything else you've got coming up? Any events or workshops or anything like that?
Yeah. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share. So evolvingenneagram.com is where you can find everything. And I'm guessing it'll be in the show notes. Depending on when this episode airs, I actually am going to be speaking at Unity Village Chapel August 17th. It's coming up really soon, and doing my first like book signing in this area, which is funny. I've, done it in other areas. So that will happen Sunday, August 17th. But the bigger thing is that for those who are wanting to journey, there are two things. I have a contemplative Enneagram Foundations Awakening to Wholeness full weekend, like intensive. This is like a major deal to really enter and go into this program over a long weekend online. It's online because actually we have someone from uh, Ireland, a couple people from Canada already signed up for this special weekend intensive. That's in September. It's all on the website. And then the other thing is, even though I am technically a business, I'm not supported by any, like main church or anything like that. I have weekly groups that are pay what you can. It was part of my mission to make sure there's something that's always accessible to anyone who wants it. And so starting September, again, we're taking summer off. You can join us online for a 12-week cohort. And what we do is we do 20 minutes of centering prayer meditation, learning to be in the silence and trusting the silence, trusting that that helps you to break free from your patterns. And then imagine everybody knowing the Enneagram in this community. So then you can share, like as a 4, I'm practicing being okay with what's here and right now,
Yeah.
as opposed to daydreaming. Like you get to share that. And that's what happens in our communities. We have 5 different groups starting in the week of September 22nd. So those are the things that are upcoming. But of course, on my website, you'll always see like the latest upcoming events. So depending on whenever you listen to this, there's always a time when you can come and join our community. The reason for those weekly cohorts is that I deeply believe that transformation is not a spot fix, but a way of life. And so this idea, there are people who have been in these groups now. We're going into our 9th year weekly together. It's a way of life, right? And it's interspiritual. It doesn't matter what background. You can be pagan. We have Muslims. We have Catholics. We have recovering Catholics. So we have the whole gamut. And the idea is that we come together in this sacred space of silence. No matter what you believe, you get to be held. So, yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Well, I'll definitely be swinging by for a book. Are you going to be in Fillmore Chapel doing your book
Yeah.
signing, or?
The book signing will be in the cafe.
Oh, in the cafe. Yeah.
Afterwards, like
Okay.
at 1:00. So I think their service is at 10:30 at
Okay.
Unity Village Chapel.
Okay.
And then their power hour is like from 1 to 2 that same day, August 17th. So you can
Okay.
come pick up a book then.
Come
Get
say hi, get a hug.
amazing
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah, I'm excited. Nian, thank you so much for joining me today. And to all of you out there that are familiar with Enneagram or maybe had never heard of it before, dig in, look it up. Check out Reverend Nian's website. Pick up a copy of her book if you're in the Kansas City area. Stop by and see her on August 17th at Unity Village. But definitely, I mean, I'm assuming your book's available on all the major sites, Amazon and Kindle and all that stuff.
Yeah. Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. There's even an Audible book version
Wow. Did you
out.
read it?
No, I really wanted to. And so that's my only sadness about that, but I don't want to complain because I'm just grateful that
Yeah, yeah.
the publisher actually wanted to do that. For a
That's
first
great.
time author, it's a big deal.
That's
So
that's
yeah, but
huge.
I
Yeah.
did secretly. I was like, maybe next time I'll get
Yeah,
to read
there
it.
you go. There's got to be another book in there somewhere,
It's
right?
gotta be.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, folks, this isn't just a book. It's a sacred invitation to remember who you are underneath the patterns. So if you're ready to stop living by default and start activating your soul, maybe this is your day one. This is Aligned AF, and I'm Yahweh. Take care. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode spoke to you at all, share it with a friend or someone who needs it. You can also leave a review or connect with me online. You can find Aligned AF on YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast channel, or at alignedaf.org. And if you want to reach out directly, you can email me at alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. So until next time, stay aligned AF.